Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to talk about the various ground vehicles that we have and kind of talk through what we know about the capabilities and differences between them. Now, we really have three true ground vehicles in the Ursa, the Cyclone, and the Grey Cat, with two sort of hybrids or space bikes in the Nox and the Dragonfly. Now, the key differentiating factor between these two categories is that space bikes hover on the ground, and they're essentially flying, which kind of gives them the capability to do the same thing in space. So while you can technically drive an Ursa out of the back of a constellation while in space, the wheeled vehicle isn't going to do you a lot of good other than continuing to float in whatever vector you released your vehicle in. So before we get to the pure ground side, just be aware that you may end up getting more versatility out of something like a space bike because of the multiple locations it can be used, but we're focusing in more on the ground here. Another thing to keep in mind is we kind of get the feeling and the confirmation that there are going to be a lot more ground vehicles coming, so this is going to be kind of our precursor, and as we get more added into the game later, we'll start adding them into these videos. So, when we start talking about these, there's a variety of purposes in which you may want to use a ground vehicle, like carrying goods that you find while scavenging, or exploring, or racing, and combat. Search and rescue comes to mind as well. But starting with cargo hauling, which we'll kind of lump in random finds from exploration and looting, you obviously need the ability to carry some goods. Now, of the vehicles mentioned, only 3 of them actually give you the ability to carry some cargo, including the Ursa, the Cyclone base model, and the Dragonfly. Today, as it stands, you can't carry anything on the Nox or the Grey Cat, so it narrows our field down pretty quick. Now, if you just have interest in carrying the most cargo, then the Ursa wins by a long shot because it carries 4 SCU of cargo, which is 4 times the 1 SCU ability of the Cyclone and the Dragonfly. The Cyclone's going to be much faster than the Ursa, so if you don't plan on needing much space and you just want to get in and out as quickly as possible, then that's probably going to be your best bet. If you plan on doing some scavenging and you want to plan on kind of staying out for extended periods of time, then the Ursa's increased cargo space is going to do you more good. Now, the Dragonfly comes with a caveat to its cargo space, being that it carries 0.25 SCU, so a quarter of an SCU, on each of the 2 saddlebags. And it can't get up to the full 1 SCU until you take out the back seat and use that for cargo, giving you an additional half an SCU. So what that means is that when you're down a man, you're still going to have to break up your cargo space a little bit, so your items have to be small. You're not going to be able to just put a full SCU crate anywhere on that craft. You'd have to opt for smaller items that can fit in either a quarter or a half SCU space. So if your focus is more on exploration, though, and you don't have the same cargo expectations, then you have a lot more options. The Ursa gives you probably the most versatility and the ability to protect yourself from the unknowns with a weapon. It's totally enclosed. It can carry 6 total people. It's got cargo space if you need it, and what should be a decent set of scanners on board. Now, the Cyclone has the Recon variant, which has some upgraded scanners, giving you the ability to see a bit further and kind of analyze what you're seeing, as well as having nice speed to allow you to cover more ground than the slower options that we have in the other vehicles. The Dragonfly acts in a similar way to the Ursa in regards to versatility, but speed seems to be a considering factor, as I think they're aiming to make it fairly slow, especially considering they said that the Nox is faster than the Dragonfly and the Cyclone should be faster than the Nox. Now, I'm not convinced that it's going to stay that way, because it seems like the Nox should be the fastest, but it is worth noting for now that that is at least the most recent communication we've gotten from CIG. Both the Nox and the Dragonfly should handle the rough terrain the best, since they actually hover over the ground. So even with the impressive suspension and wheel technology on the Cyclone, it still has the ability to flip over and is probably going to be a somewhat bumpy ride. I expect the Nox and the Dragonfly to be a much smoother experience and a lot more stable, while not having to worry about the flipping hazards that some of these others may face. So in a racing situation, I would really opt for the Cyclone, preferably the racing version, but the base version should do pretty well. It's just not going to have the same ability to recharge its boost as fast as the racing version, or I would go with the Nox. Both should be fast and both are agile, but it sounds like there are going to be some things about how they actually handle and maneuver that's going to make kind of how you would handle a race a little bit differently. I think search and rescue missions would be a good reason to have a ground vehicle too, especially rescuing someone from a crash somewhere or potentially an NPC that's in trouble from some outlaws. I really like the Recon version of the Cyclone in this area because you have the increased scanners as well as having a second seat that's available to pick someone up if you decide to leave solo. The Dragonfly also has the ability to carry a second person, so it should work in this regard too. However, with it being a bike, you're reliant on the person you're picking up being able to actually sit up and hold on, so if they're medically in trouble, the seat with some protection on the Cyclone would probably be a better bet if they're not able to be conscious enough to actually hang on to you on the bike. If you're really moving into a hot zone, though, opting for the TR version of the Cyclone, or the turret version, has the third station in the rear with the turret available, and that not only means that you can lay down covering fire, but you also get another set of hands and eyes if needed. Now, in a perfect situation, if speed is not a considering factor, the Ursa would probably be your best bet, because not only can you toss them in the back and have them protected from the elements and enemy fire, but you can also have enough space to where someone in the back could actually use a handheld medical device and provide some medical services and hopefully heal them back up to a better state while moving them to a safer location. And in regards to combat, there's a few different styles here. The bikes being hovering semi-ships have one really big advantage over the vehicles, and that's the ability to strafe. You're able to move forward, backward, laterally, diagonally. You're not limited to the direction your wheels are facing in to be able to line up the shots and to evade fire. Now, that also means that you have the ability as the driver to line up and shoot instead of relying on somebody else to do that. And we've seen some challenges in spaceships today as far as using turrets and having that be a usable experience, so it simplifies things a little bit. However, the turreted version of the Cyclone, along with the Ursa having a turret, means that while someone is driving, the other person can rotate 360 degrees to get you the firing solution that you need. So in a way, it kind of depends on your preference and if you have someone else with you, but I personally like the approach from the bikes a little bit better. The turret Cyclone does have the lowest weaponry with a single size 1 weapon on the back, while the Ursa and both bikes have 2 size 1 weapons on board, so they're all able to lay down a little bit more hurt. I think the perfect balance of speed and agility and firepower, the Nox probably wins out and the best fighter of this group, but it's going to miss out on some of the durability that the other options may have. The wild card here is probably the Dragonfly, with the second passenger on the rear, who should be able to use the new shoulder-mounted railgun, which would probably do a lot more damage than some of these size 1 weapons, so depending on your ability to hit things, if you have a proficient gunner on the back, you have a force multiplier, even if they're very exposed back there. That's the real downside for the Dragonfly, is that both passengers are very exposed and not really as protected as well as them being in some of the other vehicles here. The one I'm not really discussing is going to be the Cyclone Aaa, because I'm really talking about ground vehicles here. There may be some value in having it, considering it's got an EMP, so you might be able to deal some, you might be able to disable other ground vehicles with that EMP, but since it's more focused on the air, I'm not really lumping it into this category. And if you're noticing that I'm not really talking about the Grey Cat, it's for a very good reason, and that's the fact that it's just very bad. Even with the projected rework, outside of potentially gaining some ability for cargo, it's really more of a golf cart. I'm expecting it to be used to run to the TDD real quick to place an order or pick up a job. Basically some quick and easy transport that doesn't involve cargo. Now, you could probably do some shopping, assuming the store offers delivery to your ship or your hangar, which we have seen on display in the game. So it's not worthless, just very limited to things that are going to involve, minor little missions. And the last factor that I wanted to discuss is the sizes of these vehicles and what that means to your ability to carry them to planets. I was a bit disappointed to find out that the Cyclone is basically the same size as the Ursa. It's smaller, but not by a lot, which meant I thought that a big selling point for it was going to be for it to be able to fit into something like a Cutlass or a Freelancer, but it turns out that probably the only one that it could actually fit into would be the Freelancer Max or bigger ships. So with that in mind, even if you can carry it, there's going to be interior cargo concerns. For example, it's going to eat up a lot of your cargo space. So you get more flexibility, and the smaller Nox and the Dragonfly being able to be carried in either of those ships, the Freelancer or the Cutlass, and not really sacrificing a whole lot of cargo space to do that. Now, if you want to bring a Cyclone or an Ursa along, you really do need to count on a ship like the Constellation or the Carrack or something bigger like that to be able to bring it along. And that does make sense, considering the Connie is really a smaller to medium-sized ship, with the Freelancers being fairly small. So from a balance perspective, I get it, but it was a bit of a turnoff on the flexibility of some of these ground vehicles. So at the end of the day, I would describe them like this. The Ursa is the most well-rounded on the ground, with an ability to do search and rescue, cargo, exploration, and general transport, along with some combat, but it does lose out on speed, and is the biggest and most challenging one to transport. The Nox focuses in on speed, combat, and sightseeing, but isn't going to really be doing you any good if you need a second person or an ability to carry cargo. Now, the Dragonfly is similar to the Nox, but it gets the cargo and passenger ability. However, you're a bit more exposed riding it, and you're quite a bit slower. The Cyclones are hard to summarize since they have 5 variants without modularity, so I'm just going to say that the Cyclone is fast, it's agile, and it's capable in certain situations as long as you have the right variant for the job. And finally, the Grey Cat is a golf cart where you can run an errand as long as the errand isn't shopping within a need to actually carry your groceries home. We do know of one other rover that's going to be coming. It's the Lynx. It's the one that's actually sold with the Phoenix. I'm expecting it to either be like very fast, as far as like a faster version of the Ursa. It'll probably be a little bit more luxurious or fancy, but we should probably be getting more information on that fairly soon. So that's it for this ground vehicle. Hopefully you guys have a better understanding of some of these vehicles. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for more, and have a great day. Take care.